But I'm going to go ahead and do the nose dots, which are in keeping with the old dolls. They all, not all of them had nose dots, but the antique, the good ones did. That's one way of telling they're more expensive, any eye dots. There. Okay? Then I'll fire that, and then I'll come back and I'll do the lashes, the black lashes all around there, and I'll rim the eye with a little bit of black, and I will touch up. When you fire, you lose a little bit of color. So I will come back and I'll touch up the red again, go over the red, I'll do the outline of the lips, put a little more rouge on the face and brighten that up a little more. Just again, right on top of there, after that's been fired again. Because if you get this too bright and you fire it, you can't take it off. I mean, it's there, and the doll is wasted. So you're a lot better off, even if it takes you like 3 firings to get your color up to the depth that you want it, you're a lot better off to go those 3 firings if that's what you need. Okay. How about the other cheek?
Sure, that's a good idea.
Okay. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil over here. Spread that all around. Put it all on, then take it all off. I think what is hard about doing something like this is getting them to match. Like when you put your eyes in, they've got to be exactly the same. They've got to go the same direction. And doing the highlights on the cheeks, they've got to be pretty close. So it's always easy doing one. It's getting a second one rouged in. Put a little more color up in there. I don't want to get it up into the eye too much, but I want to have a little bit of color up in there. And sometimes you just take your brush with just a little residue in there and you can go across like this and just put a little bit of color into the forehead. It doesn't really show up too much. I'll put a little bit up there. Be ever so light. Now I'm going to have a little more oil with this to do that. I guess you can cut this part out because I should have oiled this. I should have oiled this first. Okay. Having sufficiently oiled that, now I'll put just a little bit of color. Now the old antique dolls, when they were done, they were poured in a solid white bisque. And this isn't coming up the way I want this at all. The old dolls were poured in a solid white bisque, and then they took a little bit of this red paint and they did a wash all over it. This is one way you can tell an antique doll from a reproduction doll, is to look inside of it, and the old ones will be white inside and these will be pink. Okay. But anyways, that gives her a little bit of color. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just tell me when you're ready. what I'm doing now is mixing up some of the porcelain slip. And I think I've got that sufficiently mixed. This is a little, called a slip whiz, a little gadget to go into the porcelain. It mixes it up. I used to have to do it by hand, but this mixes it up much faster and much better without getting any air bubbles into it. Now I'm going to pour it in here and strain this. This has to be the consistency of a light cream, which this is. It's just about right. Put that back in there. Okay, I'm all ready to pour. And what I'm going to pour is a German Henwick doll. And this is what the mold looks like from the inside. It's just inverted of what it comes out to be. And this is actually the finished product right here. I did one earlier this morning. I'm going to brush these off so they don't have any dust in there. Any dust you leave in there will show up in the finished product. Put those two pieces together. Put a couple bands around here to hold them together. The molds are made out of plaster of Paris. If I could do this. I'm in a habit of taking these molds like this and putting them against my body. There. Okay. I'm going to pour this liquid clay in here, and I'm going to fill this right up to the top. I'm going to pour it slowly and evenly so that we don't get any air bubbles caught anywhere. Right to the very, very top. Okay, gonna let that set. Now this particular doll has a cloth body, because this is the shoulder head. So that's the whole shoulder. And it has arms with cloth legs. So I'm gonna pour the arms next. These are the arms. Put those molds together. Pour that in real slow. I want to end up with a full hand and not any of the little fingers missing. Whoops, went over a little bit. Okay, now these have to be allowed to set for about 15 minutes. And that has to be the thickness of 2/4, the edge of that. And you can see when that starts to set up because it gets thick. At that point, you pour the molds off. And I just wanted to show that this is the color it looks like when it's wet. Then it turns white, and then when it's fired, it will turn this color. When it's fired, it will turn the flesh tone. That's it.
So it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah. And then I can pour it off, and then I can open the mold in another, it takes about 20 minutes or so before I can open the mold. But we can do some of this.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's almost out of there. A little more in there. Wow, I guess we got a lot in there. Okay, Now I'm going to just take and put it on this little block and let that prop, and that will be drying underneath there, and the rest of it will run out onto the paper. And I'm going to pour off this head because I'm pretty sure I'm got 2/4 thick, maybe a little more. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that. That's it. And prop this one. That way the air can get under there. Okay. Put my cover back on. I'm all done this. Taking a few of these bands off. Now I'm going to check this now and see if I can't take the arms out of this mold. Scrape this off a little bit here. This has to come apart willingly and freely, and it's going to. If you force it, you'll end up with broken pieces. Okay, that's going to be all right. Now I'm going to take my little scalpel and trim this off right here and here. Let's see if this is going to be ready to come out. Oh yeah, this is good. There's one hand. There's the other one. One of the really important things, because this is plaster of Paris, is to put this mold right back together. Because this is wet now, it's absorbed all the water from the clay. And I'll put that back together so that this will dry together. Otherwise they could dry unevenly and then it might not fit. Now I'm going to loosen this one up. I've got the bands off already. Let's see where we are here. This might be ready. I'll take a little more of this off. This is not ready. I'm going to have to wait a little bit on this. It's a bigger piece.
It's on.
This has got you can see where the seam lines are there. And while this is still green, this is called greenware, and while this is still green, it's really, really tender. I'm going to scrape off a lot of these lines. Later on, when this is set up a little bit more, I'll take a little bit of, well, I use a little bit of knitting, and I wrap it around my finger, and I sand that lines off. But right now I can't do that. I have to wait for that to dry a little bit more. Maybe you can see the lines in this a little bit better, and that just scrapes right off. Real easy. And I have special little tools to go down and in between each of the fingers. I just get the very worst of it off right now, and then I go back after this is good and dry, and then I'll smooth that all up, and I'll define the fingers, and I go around each little fingernail and define each little fingernail there. I'm going to take this head now. This is the Henwick, again, the same one that's in the... You see the mark on the back of this, the Henwick, which is Germany. It was made about 1900, and it's got a mold number on here, and then a name. And I'm going to put my John Hancock, my logo, down here at the bottom. And I'm going to put a date on this, 1986, and I just sort of sgraffitoed that right into the clay. And when this is fired, this head will be quite a bit smaller than it is right now, and this will be in there forever. You know, there would be no way that this could be passed off as an authentic antique doll. This is a reproduction. And why people are doing reproductions today is because these dolls are so expensive. They are thousands and thousands of dollars. And if anyone really appreciates and wants to collect dolls, they can go out and buy this doll all done, which is an authentic reproduction for a couple $100 or less. You know, that's why dolls are coming back into being made again, because they are so expensive. Now I'm going to try this again. Okay, I'm going to take this apart. I might have done a little bit of damage there, I can't tell. Okay. I've got this apart. And I've got a little damage on the nose. I've got a little crack in the shoulder. I'm going to let this set a little bit. And then I will repair this. I can save this doll. Only if the head caved right in would you actually lose it. So I'm going to trim around here now. Cut this right off. You can see how tender that is. It wouldn't take too much at this state for it to just come right apart. Okay, I've got to let that set. Meanwhile, I'm going back here. This doll head, which is identical to that one, will be hooked onto a cloth body. So I have to make the little holes that will have the little leather straps that will go down and hold it onto the cloth body. This is, you can break off the whole edge of the shoulder at this point, but this is what I call the leather hard stage. It's just about like leather. It's still mobile, but it's not so stiff. So I've got one hole and I've got to balance that, so I got to bring another one over here. I'll do this on each corner. And on a larger doll head like this, I'm going to put one right in the middle, because that's the way they did them. I don't have that exactly in the middle. But if you take apart any of the old antique dolls, you'll find that they just did this hit or miss, because this is actually, this part doesn't show. You want to get it somewheres, but not exactly. I'll do the same thing over here. Then when this dries, I'll sand these holes so they'll be nice and smooth. If I left this really rough, all those little pieces would just be really sharp, and it would cut the pieces just like the little leather straps, just like a piece of glass would cut it. Okay. Okay, this doll head is not ready to support itself, so I'm going to have to leave it in there for a while.
That's fine.
Okay.
Get my clippers there.
Okay, I'm going to trim off the seams with this little knife I've got here. I don't know if you can see that too well, but I'm going to take that seam right off. Whoops. Don't want to cut the finger off. These knives are so sharp. This is just a very crude, a very rough cleaning at this point, because this is so tender. This will be the little ball joint. Goes into the shoulder, like that, some ways in there. Actually, that's the elbow. Comes off real easy. You If you make any mistakes, this is the time to correct them. Here. This will be probably better done afterwards anyways. I had a little one over here on this one, which I filled in. Fill that right in there. Now it'll be sanded right off. What I need is another piece of board here. If you leave it in the mold too long, it dries it out to such an extent that it will crack in the mold. But this still is not ready to come out. It's still sticking. I can't force it because it will.
No, I wouldn't want to. What does it need though? We're ready.
Okay, I'm going to take this out now. This seems to be all loosened around the edge. I'm going to set it right there. And I'm going to give it a little bit of support. In my hand, I'm going to pick that up and trim this off. Actually, you only have to just barely touch this around here, and this will just peel right off. You can see how pliable that is. See how tender? How tender that is? Okay. Give him just a little bit of support. That's it. I usually do about 6 doll heads at a time because it's just as much work to do one as it is to do 6. But these I'm working on here, I've got 3 little German googly dolls. And the googly doll, this is a smaller version of this doll over here. They call them a googly because of the way the eyes go off to one side. They're very mischievous. But this one has a all bisque body, comes down like that. And the legs they're all ball jointed so that they can swivel. And then it comes down into another little ball joint. These are all made separately. And that little ball joint on that leg goes from there down into there, giving that doll mobility. Okay, those are those. And sometimes when you're firing these dolls, they're fired at 2100 degrees. And when you put them in the kiln, you close the kiln, and you pray to God that everything comes out all right. But once in a while, they don't. They either will shrink at a different rate, or they'll stick to the kiln shelf or something. And this is a good example of that. This particular head stuck to the kiln shelf, and it warped, and it shrunk at a different rate, thereby causing the pressure, and it cracked there. So this is a bad head. I can't do anything with this. There's no saving that at all. But this is a good one. So that one's okay. This is what's called a socket head, because this goes into another piece. It fits right down. It's sort of like a ball joint, except it's a socket head. And here's another socket head with a shoulder, a breastplate. Goes down, turns, so you can turn it around. And this particular doll here has the shoulder, so there's no turning on that head at all. That's a stationary head. And this little doll is this is the Avro baby. This is a very, very popular doll, sort of like the Bilo, which is a very popular one. Has a flange head, so that you bring the body up, the cloth body, you tie that and gather that right around there, and the head can turn whichever way. Then the little arms are hooked on from the shoulder. These are some of the dolls I've made, but I've got in here 2 that I didn't make. And this is a China head that I did. She's about 30 inches tall, And she's as near as exact as I could get her. And she's even got the china painting on her legs to indicate her stockings. This doll is one that my mother gave me, so this is an authentic antique. And this doll down here, which is a china head, the china head has a glaze on it, so that indicates it's shiny, it's a china head. Where these are called bisque head, they're more natural and they don't have a glaze. It's just the natural bisque without a glaze. And this is the little pouty. He has an all bisque body with a little mohair wig that I made him. This is my husband's favorite. And this is the same version, only bigger. It's such a popular doll that I decided to get into the bigger size. And these are some of the doll eyes that go into these dolls. This happens to be a glass eye. And I have a couple eyes here that are on rocker panels. Now these are authentic antique eyes that are hand blown, and they will open and close. So when I pick up dolls at flea markets and like that, if I can't salvage the head, I can at least salvage the eyes, providing they're both there. And I've done a little bit with repairing dolls for people. A woman brought this doll in. The body had to be clean, the bisque had to be clean, and the eyes have to be reset. And this is what's called a skull crown. This is an antique one, so this looks kind of rough. But the hair will all be taken off in this, and that skull crown will be glued back onto that head, and then a new wig will be put back on. The wig will be glued to the skull crown. This is another little German shoulder head that I've been working on repairing. I've cleaned the bisque. I'll reset the eyes, put the skull crown back on. And in this case, this has to be joined to the body. And there has to be some repairs done on the leather. Now this doll over here is one that I have restored, and she's waiting to be picked up by her owner. I cleaned her and put a wig on her and made her an arm because she was missing an arm. And then I did a little research on it for the person, told what the doll was, when it was made, and the value. This doll originally sold for $2.50. It's worth between $85 and $125 today. This is the Lady Marta doll. I like to call her Snow White. I designed her costume. She even has a corset. She's got little leggings and stockings and a little corset. She is a shoulder head doll. I've got her right here. So she's got a cloth body, and her arms are cloth to there, and the rest is bisque. But her whole body is all cloth, including her legs. That's it. Pretend like I'm doing something. Sorry.
Our Saturday morning audience may be small, but they're important.
Allison, Danielle, time for the snowman.
And now for the award-winning Snowman. When we win, San Francisco wins.